Well, during the pandemic, we because a lot of our work is seasonal, we have to, like harvesting or willow and dogwood, that those sort of things have to continue on. Like the gardening work the seasonal work has to continue. So we'd end up with materials. So we have to use the materials. So being so isolated and so closed down, the sounds of nature, suddenly realising the intensity of the birds and the volume of sounds from them became a lot more important in our everyday life, and realising that even though everything was quiet, nature was quite alive. Nature didn't lock down, it kept going the whole time, and getting in tune with that, I think, was vitally important just to survive the time, and to kind of understand, have some way of marking the passage of time, where previously you'd have events during the summer and autumn and winter that would mark the seasons and everything, and without these as markers, it was kind of difficult. So new markers came important when the swallows arrived, when the first nestlings were hatched. These sort of things became more important than the seasonal, like the Halloween events or the Christmas events and things like that, because we're kind of aware of the natural events that go around us anyway, from our setting. But with the lockdown, it just really intensified it all. We really noticed it a lot more.
I think it was the quietness of lockdown in the beginning. The birds singing, the sounds all intensified. And we had, in the early stage of lockdown, we had lovely weather. So the colours were shone out more, they were more powerful than on a wet, miserable day. So it had a very emotional effect.
The main effect I found the whole experience has had on me has been to make me more reflective. Somehow time slowed down, and for the first time in years I found myself thinking about what my priorities are. I don't know whether this is something that would have happened as I get older anyway, but somehow this feeling that life had been put into suspension made the whole thing clearer to me. I found myself becoming more aware of the changing seasons and the order in which things happen. I often found myself thinking and rethinking and distilling ideas in my head around ideas and themes rather than physically creating anything at the time.
I think my work is intuitive, and my creative process has always been interlinked to my environment and my surroundings. It's an expression of who I am as an artist, really. And my connection with nature, it was so important at that time. Working in the community garden, and the sheer act, the tactile act of having my hands on the soil, it just grounded me. It made me feel normal again. And my visits to the lake and the forest down at the community garden and the eco park, it just was my safe haven. It was, my beautiful sanctuary, my personal sanctuary.
The role of nature in creativity is, it's difficult. Without it, I don't know if I could exist. I don't. It's hard to kind of point out the actual effect it has, other than I can work peacefully in this sort of surroundings without machinery and just with hand tools. I feel a lot more relaxed and a lot more in tune with myself. When you have big machines and powerful machines and you're doing everything with those sort of things, you lose that connection with everything around you, because you're isolated with headphones and everything. So yeah, I feel like I need this space around me as a kind of a cocoon or a cushion. But yeah, one of the interesting things with building with natural things is the amount of time it takes that when to let things dry, and it's not like concrete where you just pour it and the next day you can pour more and pour more. It's clay. You have to work it, you have to build it, you have to let it season, and then eventually once it's certain dryness, you have to plaster it, and with the lime plaster. So these things take a longer time scale. So during the lockdown, it was actually quite really nice having that length of time where we could just concentrate on things and not be drawn away to other events or other things to be at. So. Yeah, it helped in a lot of ways for the creative, for the process of just. I find myself now enjoying the process of making a lot more, especially with the chairs and the games that I'm not. I used to be a lot more frantic about having to make it, and I have to make it today because it needs to be done by next week. And now I'm kind of going, well, no, that's not working, so leave that away. I can come back to it. I will come back to it, and having that. Confidence to know that you are going to come back to it. You're not just going to forget about it completely. You are going to come back and finish it. But sometimes you need that process to mull over in your mind. You need the time. So you go, oh no, that would work with that. And so that's been a good thing with the lockdown. It has given us that length of time, or the understanding that time is important, and you can take your time. You will get back to things. At the moment, we've kind of inventing ourselves, as it were, as the bemusement games. I have a collection of games and interactive toys that children and adults use from 3 to 93 that interact with. Initially, I would have been selling crafts at shows, and I would have something that I'd made to entertain my own children, and then I made a chess table, and people were queuing up to play the chess table and not buying my stuff. And I kind of realised, well, there might be something in this. People seem to be, they wanted a street entertainment, something slightly different. So from that it's developed, and then as soon as you had the one marble game and people were playing it, that inspired you to make 3 or 4 more marble games, and all of a sudden now it's about 8... in the 20s, I think it is, with the games. But yeah, we found that they're great for communities because of the fact there's no electronics, everything's natural, people can touch and feel things. It really works well.
Well, the free motion stitching is more detailed work, and I have to concentrate on what I'm doing. And that gradually then goes into the hand stitching. And the hand stitching is more meditative, whereas I have the threads all around me and I pick them up. And to me it's the process. I'm not thinking of the finished piece. It's the process of getting from the image to the final piece that's of interest to me. I think it's a way of my mind slowing down, where with the painting and the layering of fabric, my mind is working faster, and with the free motion stitching it's working faster, but by the time I get to the layering of the hand stitching, my mind has slowed down. For the painting and the stitching, I would have learned all the basic techniques, and it's breaking all the rules in what I do. It's how I can break the rules of stitching and break the rules of painting and combine them together. COVID opened up a space to be creative and to have a simpler way of life. The lack of physical touch, of people not being able to look at a painting, visit a theatre or a museum, has been heartbreaking for many people. These are emotional side of our lives, and I feel it's important that we are physically interact with these activities to start the healing process that these activities give to our lives.
I often found myself thinking, just working through things in my head around ideas and themes rather than physically creating anything at the time. I've enjoyed planning work based on plants and animals that I observed at different times of the year, and also a series of work based on the changes imposed by our actions on the world. In particular, this arises from work I've done in the past based on maps and charts, and I suppose it's a way of trying to impose an order on the mad world in the way. I wanted to show how natural and man-made patterns work both for and against each other. I'm very interested in how we try to control life and how it doesn't always work. Going through the pandemic, we're witnessing how people react to control or the lack of it. When I'm creating my work, my inclination is to be precise as I use old-fashioned techniques. I have to follow a very controlled system, unlike other artists who work in a very liberated way. These are two different approaches, but I think in the end we always return to our basic nature. I found it much easier to just think randomly along loads of different lines at once, and when it's all in your head you can think around subjects much more easily. It's in a way you're a bit like a butterfly, you know, you're hopping from one thing to another, but they all end up coming back to one sort of distilled idea at the end. Then you have to get it down on paper before you actually make it. I used to actually just sit down and start making stuff straight off with the idea in my head, but now I do have to ultimately get something down on paper as a sort of finished design for something. I will alter it slightly as I'm physically making it. Yeah, it does feel a bit like I've had a grace period, that without the external pressure to get things done. And in one way life has been complicated in one way and very limited in what you're able to do and get out and about to do and stuff like that. But on the other hand, it's felt very relaxing, and that lack of pressure, I suppose, is a difficult balance to be made when you're a creative person. I could just sit down and read in the sun all day, but it can be difficult to make yourself be productively creative, I think. Yeah. But there's lots of different ways of being creative. It's not just, I found that you want to actually be creative in every area of your life. Dealing with whatever madness is going on in the world, it's all completely legitimate. And I don't necessarily see any one kind of creative work is any better than any other, you know. It's as long as it works and helps you get through stuff and deal with your life as you're going along, it's useful. And that being able to actually do something creative in whatever field it is a way of regaining some kind of control over your life.
This collection had a real sense of foreboding. It was reflecting my fears and my anxieties for the future. I mean, nobody knew what was going to happen. And I think this approach probably lasted about 6 months. And all my paintings at that time were depicting moody, atmospheric landscapes. And there was always a contrasting light though. I think I was trying to portray hope. I was somehow trying to reassure myself that things were going to get better. And every emotion was painted and everything was documented. It was the act of being creative was my physical way, the only possible way I knew how to deal with the situation that was going on around me. After that there came a transition. I seemed to be focused more on family ties. There was definitely a distinct shift in my work, in my writing and in my painting. It's very strange, but out went the darkness and in came the light. it's like all my focus was on family, the people I love, the people that were close to me at that time. And I think my thoughts were on beautiful, happy, colourful family life pictures, paintings. It was memories. Memories were a companion. Memories were a comfort in that difficult time, you know. And then my mum, my beautiful mother, passed away then at the beginning of this year. And although it's tainted with sadness and grief, all that emotion is echoed in a new body of work. This will ensure that her memory lives on. In June of last year, my niece got married, and of course none of us were able to attend the wedding, so I sat back and watched it on video, and this little vision appeared in a white dress, and I realised it was our first communion dress. And I can't tell you the effect that had on me. After 50 years, each of us in our turn, my mum had made the dress, we wore that dress, and it's the first time that I remembered us all as children, every one of us, and that had such an effect on me. It's very difficult to explain, but it's the first time that I saw each and every one of their little faces, and it was like I forgot to remember. It's as simple as that. Life took over. And there was a total shift in my work after that, in my writing and in my painting. Out went the darkness and in came the light. For the first time, it was like a veil had lifted, and I could see things really clearly for the first time in a long time. And I started, you know, recording and recollecting beautiful childhood scenes and happy memories. And it was just such a nice path to go down, to explore. And those memories, like there's such a comfort in difficult times like that. I think they're so important to hold on to.
To be creative, I think you're showing a part of your soul to other people. You're exposing yourself to other people, and then their reaction to what you create can be a lovely experience to see people's reaction to what you create. And you stitch and you go into that meditative state without even trying to, without realising you're in it, and it calms the body down. It's a healing process. You're in the zone. I think it's a necessary part of our emotional life that we need to interact with these activities. We need to expose people to more artistic outlets, whether it's on the street or whether it's inside in buildings. We need to get more out there for people, because it does, even if they think they're not creative, the emotional that it brings out, watching somebody else being creative, and given time to get these emotions out, because I think that's what's going to be the slow process, giving people the time.
the lack of actual physical contact with other humans it wasn't a major thing for me, but the act of not having conversations was a greater hindrance to me. Yeah, I found that more difficult to deal with, that lack of conversation and things with people. And not coming from an artistic background, like I didn't train in arts or whatever, the idea of motivation and inspiration, it's something we've been dealing with ourselves. You know, where does it come from? And you know, and it's quite interesting when you realise, no, it comes actually from those interactions with other humans. It's a nice way to find out how we, you know. I think little bits of inspiration was in the Stenhall festival. A young child who had been playing some of the games with me, at the end of the Saturday evening, he came over with a cardboard box and he said, "Could I have a marble, please?" And inside the cardboard box he had sellotaped little gaps and little levels and little nails into it and all that. And sure, that's all you want, you know. He's obviously been inspired, so I gave him a fistful of marbles, you know. And that sort of thing is priceless. You know, you just hope that he is going to do that. And well, a lot of time, I think, if people don't see things, they can't imagine them. I don't know whether that makes sense, but you have to actually have some visual reference or reference to these playing with wood in order to in the future play with it again. If that makes it all sense. If everything is flat pack and neat and tidy, I find that it holds my imagination, it stops my imagination if everything's too neat and tidy. That you need the wild, you need the kind of, you need the wild, really. Again, it's about sort of like kind of changing people's perspective of what they actually see to actually what the reality is. Because everything has another use, I suppose.